Welcome to the Off the Road Again podcast. I'm Chris.
I'm Ross.
I'm John Watson from the Radavist.
And I actually got my pointing the correct way that time. That actually worked out.
For your screen. For me, it just looked like you're pointing to your room.
Did it really?
Yeah.
Well, remember that my screen's the one that we post, so
this is true. Fair.
That'll work out.
Okay.
So thank you, John, for coming on.
Yes. Thanks, John, for joining us.
Yeah.
So when I think I found you through Instagram forever ago, but it was probably early on in the Go Fast scene where with your 80 series.
Yeah, totally.
And somebody posted this gorgeous tan 80 series, and I was like, so I have a 94 Land Cruiser that I'm trying to sell. But early on, I was like, well, when I finally get there, that's what I want it to look like.
Yeah.
It is a killer truck.
I just didn't get there.
Yeah. No, that truck was a lot of fun. I don't know. I guess, do you want me to just I can talk about the 80 for a little bit?
Sure.
Just what it was. Yeah.
Do it.
I spent a lot of time in Japan and Australia, and I didn't really value cars. And this is gonna sound super shitty, but I didn't value cars until moving to California.
Okay.
Not because I enjoyed traffic, but because I was like, oh, we can jump in a truck and be in the Mojave Desert in 3 hours and see some really crazy shit, and or maybe go drive somewhere and go mountain biking. And so I had a first year Tacoma, a 96 Tacoma, and then I moved to California and I meet a girl, and then she has a dog, and I have friends coming in town all the time, and I had come off of 2 big trips to Japan and Australia and Tasmania, and I was like, okay, I hate the gasser cruisers of America. I hate their gas mileage. I hate their lack of pickup. But these utes and cruisers and wagons and shit we're driving in Japan and Australia are crazy, and I really want one. And then I got home and saw an HJ61 for sale and bought it. Couldn't get it registered in California. Started getting tickets. Neighbors hated it, whatever. And so I sold it to a friend in Texas who could register it, obviously. And then
Because Texas,
yeah. And then I bought a 80 series that already had a California title, that
nice.
HDJ1, so turbo diesel, 1 HDT, direct injected. Yeah, that's it. Little piggy. And the problem with a lot of the JDM vehicles, and you won't really, unless you're digging deep on I Hate Mud, the Land Cruiser forum, and none of the importers will tell you this, and none of the cruiser shops will tell you this, but the problem with Japanese JDM vehicles is that they basically idle in traffic. They don't really drive their vehicles hard, so they just never break in correctly. You get, I don't know what the Toyota protocol is for a 1HZ or a 1HDT, but a lot of them come and they just the rings haven't been bed in properly, or various reasons. So I was basically tracking, fixing all these gremlins with the truck, rebuilding the injection pump, replace every mechanical thing in it, and then finally get it all over 4 years, finally get it running great, where it's not smoking and it's got a lot of torque. And then COVID hit and we moved to New Mexico, and I was I've wanted a Troopy since the first time I saw one in Australia. I was like, what the fuck is that thing? And
I've never seen that before. Holy shit.
Yeah, that thing is amazing. And we used one to shuttle mountain bike trail in Tassie, and man, these things are so sick. And I was like, okay, well, if I move to New Mexico where we don't have CARB and we don't have all this crazy emission standards, then I'm just going to import a Troopy. And my plan was originally to spend my birthday this year down in Australia. I was going to buy one, tour around with it, and then ship it back to the US. And then obviously COVID hit.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah. So
that would have been crazy spectacular.
Yeah, it would have been great. And and it, like truthfully, like it'll probably still happen. I'll probably do it for my 40th this year if Americans are allowed to leave their playpen. But so I basically like got to Santa Fe, saw this Troopy that was for sale, bought it. Meanwhile, my 80 was back in California getting work done by Cruiser Brothers. They had it for like since February. So this is like, so this is
Cruiser
April.
Brothers George?
Yeah, George, Valley Hybrids.
Yeah.
So
the Land Cruiser world is such an eclectic little like hub inside the off-road world.
Yeah. It's the craziest thing to me is that, all these people are buying these like JDM diesels, and there's like 4 mechanics in the US that know how to work on those engines.
Right.
Exactly.
It's like Skylines, like R32s.
Yeah, and like, Gary Mudrack, George, guys at TorFab, there's like some other like smaller shops, kind of all like Steve and the guys up at Overland Cruisers in Montana know them.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of like, you can't just like take it to, all these importers are like, oh, friend a Volkswagen TDI shop and they can work on it, or take it to a fucking Land Rover shop. And it's like, no, they can't, because it's like the precision that goes into a Japanese turbo diesel is like way more like the numbers. It's just a numbers game. Like you take it to a Cummins shop and those guys are like, you could pretty much like tune this thing just by what it sounds like or whatever. But and long story short,
more finesse. Anyways, so you ended up in Santa Fe.
Yeah, so I bought this Troopy. Meanwhile, my 80s back at Cruiser Brothers, and George is like trying to get these parts to come in from like Japan and Australia and like UAE, and all the shipping is just buggered. So it basically sat there for like 4 months, and then he was finally like in June he was like, hey, we're tired of moving this thing in and out of the shop every day, like can you come get it? And this one of my friends had said that they wanted to buy the truck, and so I just like hollered at them. I was like, hey, if you want to buy it, I'm going to be in Stockton June fucking 16th or whatever, meet me there. And so it was like this whirlwind trip. So I drove the Troopy out, sold the 80, and then drove the Troopy back.
Oh my God.
And it was yeah. And I did this like loop. I went up to Bend, because the same thing with like, I had this Alucab topper waiting for the Troopy, and I was like, I don't think it's safe to travel. Mm-hmm. And then there's this window where the COVID restrictions in Oregon had like subsided, and I was like, okay, I feel safe traveling to Bend. And so I went to Bend and like hung out with the guys at Fit Garage, and we chopped the roof off and did the Alucab conversion, and then I turned around and drove straight down to Stockton. And it was terrifying. I mean, I got called like sheep by like various Bubbas in Utah and Idaho, like because I was wearing a mask, using like hand sanitizer, and
I got called sheep by a dude in the gym a couple months ago. It's like, this is Connecticut, man. What's wrong with you?
It happens. It's crazy. But yeah, so those guys, I would actually say they're definitely a big reason for the insurgence of Troopies in the U.S. And it's not that they necessarily import them, but they definitely facilitate building them out. And it's kind of like I want to buy things from like people that are like my age, but even though I'm probably like 10 years older than those guys. But I just want to buy things from people with a similar like vibe and energy, and support companies that I feel like align that way. And so like I met Alex at this importer's shop in Los Angeles randomly. He was coming back from Baja with his wife, and we just kind of like been Instagram friends for like two years, I guess. And yeah, they're just great. It's like hanging out in like a clubhouse, which I'm sure the kind of uptight people probably get annoyed by, but I'm like, the world's too serious right now. I kind of want to hang out with guys that are shooting each other with Nerf guns while they're like chopping the roof off your kind of rare vehicle.
It sounds great. So it was the Troopy already here, or did you do the import yourself?
No. I didn't do any importings on this one. So this guy on Mud had it. He was an importer. He typically works in European ones because people are afraid of right-hand drives for some reason.
Yep.
And he basically is like the Euro ones he brings in, he'll like do body off like frame
Oh
restore.
shit!
And
Oh wow.
yeah, like, he sold a BJ73, like a beautiful 73 series. It actually might have been an HZJ73, but yeah, and I think he sold that 73 series more than the Troopy because he had done like a body off resto on it.
That's pretty
Which is
cool.
basically, yeah. I mean, in a 70 series, it's like there's like probably 30 bolts that hold the dash in, and then you just got to take the chairs out, and it's like that's it. There's no
Wow.
insulation, no like sound deadening whatsoever. You're driving.
Here's a
Like
piece of metal, and
yeah,
then
it's just
here's another piece of metal.
yeah. Everyone always in the States are like they romanticize the 70s, like, oh, I wish we got them here, and I'm like, you guys complain about like anything, like driving anything like older than like a 2012 4Runner. Like,
Right.
like,
It's like drive a CJ or a YJ, and then
yeah,
take out some of the American insulation.
I have to meet these guys.
Yeah, these guys are doing some rad shit. We gotta get them on.
So, John, little background. I have 4 kids.
Oh wow.
So I'm constantly looking at things that I can stash all of them in, and Pinsgauer has been on my list forever. Troopy's also been on the list.
Yeah.
But Pinsgauer for me is like it's like my Halo money. Like when I finally have enough money to go completely bonkers.
Need a Sherp.
Yeah. Sherps don't. They don't go fast enough.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm joking.
But yeah, Ozzy's it's like a C300 or something like that. That Volvo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That thing, it was still going like 60 on the highway, 65 on the highway, and he just engine swapped it. Some kind of might be a Mercedes diesel, but he's working on engine swap right now. But that thing is crazy. I mean,
I'm gonna open that in a new tab.
My boss has one of those.
What?
Yeah.
Does he want to let me drive it?
It has an LS3. No, LS3 or an LS1. I can't remember.
Yeah.
You should let me drive it then.
I've never seen it move, but I'm gonna try to find a picture of it.
It's like dude jewelry. It just sits in the front of the house or something.
Oh no, there's many more projects.
Yeah, I get it.
Oh no, he doesn't have a C300. What is the other? He has some other weird Volvo truck thing.
Those things were surprisingly. I shot a bike race that ran the length of Sweden, and it was like a randonnée event. So like people they were sleeping for like an hour or whatever, and I saw so many of those Volvos that I was just blown away. Like the people, like all these like small towns, like 3 or 4 houses in like a town of maybe like 50 houses would have one of those sitting in their front yard with like a snowplow. And I'm just like, yeah, I guess that's a good reappropriation of a, military vehicle.
Well, they're aluminum bodied, so they don't have to worry about rust. So for them.
Yeah. I didn't realize that.
Sorry, no, he has a Volvo TP21.
Yeah, that's like it's like the Studebaker on like Crazy
Basically.
40s, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, and Ozzy's is like on Treps, so he's got it run on like Maxxis Treps. So it's like, I think like the Maxxis rep gave him some killer deal on those. I think you got them for like $100 a piece or something.
That's awesome.
They are so big.
Yeah. We didn't like wheel all that hard when I was there, but they've got, I mean, as you've seen in their photos, they get into some shit. I mean, and then Ethan's got that little like Prado, the KZJ 78 that he like sends off of dunes and is getting like there. I'm like, you're gonna fucking,
oh my God,
look at that front axle.
Dude, I still need to learn the designations for the Land Cruisers because KZJ, FZJ. The KZJ is cool.
KZJ is a Prado, so it's like the light duty version of a Land Cruiser. It's in the same body and weight class as like a 4Runner or Hilux or a Tacoma. So because like not like a 77 looks cool, but it's leaf sprung. The ones from Japan are 24 volt. They're not that comfortable. And then a Prado has coil springs, is 12 volt. The axles are a little bit smaller. The control arms and Yeah, they're just a little bit. That one's got like some hog tires, but
Yeah, it does.
they're just lighter duty. But that said, like, I mean, most people. I mean, if Ethan is jumping his, like, in sand dunes, it's fine.
It'll do okay.
Yeah, part of the reason why people break CVs doing that kind of shit is because they're driving like 8,000-pound 80 series,
right?
And then I think the Prado is probably like 6 or something, or maybe.
Well, they started as heavy vehicles, and then it's overloaded with everything you can tack on it.
Yeah.
Speaking of, what have you done to yours other than the Alucab? It looks well assembled and tastefully done, not overdone.
Yeah. Well, once I got the body lift taken off, because the problem with anything that comes from Australia is it's just like you have no fucking idea what its previous life was.
Mm-hmm.
My girlfriend jokes that like the truck is in its retirement years.
It's golden years.
Yeah, because we're not out like beating it in the bush or whatever. But the guy in Australia that owned it swapped the 2H out for the 12HT.
Okay.
And so it's a turbo diesel now. And it's, the 12HT, it doesn't have glow plugs or spark plugs or timing belt or timing chain. It's like direct injected 4.0 liter turbo diesel.
That's crazy.
So we took the body lift off, and then he had a top mount intercooler, which those are just pieces of shit anyway. They don't really do anything because of the heat sink. So we had to take the top mount off because the hood was hitting the intercooler. Mm-hmm. And then it was like, and then the auxiliary gas tank has to come out. And then the exhaust was routed between the body and the frame, so you got to take the exhaust out.
How big is the auxiliary tank?
I think it was like a 25 or 30 gallon tank.
And that's a secondary tank? Jesus.
Yeah, a secondary tank.
Oh shit.
I'm still gonna put another aux tank in. I just haven't. There's other priorities, and like right now, like our average round trip is like 200 miles, if that. Mm-hmm. So I don't even. It's like we literally haven't left like New Mexico, like with COVID lockdown. So we've just been driving, 80 miles up in any direction and doing stuff there. So, but yeah, so I took the body lift off, put new suspension on it. It came with a lot of stuff. It came with like, extra heavy duty, old man emu lift. So I put that on. I replaced like any kind of like belt or hose or any kind of like
solid idea
component. Yeah,
I didn't get into the vacuum lines yet. I put a 12 volt system in, so it's got a National Luna battery box with 600 watt sine wave inverter. It's got 320 watts of solar on the roof with a Renogy. It's all Renogy because it's. I just think they make the best stuff. And then we've got a Dometic 75 liter fridge.
Nice. And solar could probably run and charge the fridge, right?
Oh yeah. So I mean, I could literally I just have the fridge on like 30 degrees just so that the battery isn't always at 100%. Like there's more than enough power in the battery. And then like ARB, side steps, fender rails, bumper, come up winch, Baja Designs lights. It's pretty much, I don't want to do anything else to the exterior. Now it's just like the interior build that I need to work on. I'm just going to do 80/20 cabinets with like real simple stuff, like just some drawers for our kitchen stuff, and then just Velcro panels to like shove like bags or whatever in. And the coolest part about it was just actually getting the swing out arm mounted for the bike rack, because that I have to have that in any of my vehicles because I've always got a bike rack on, and bike racks are a pain in the ass. But yeah, it's been great. I mean, the thing, like when I had to drive up to Bend to put the top on and then sell the 80, like, I mean, it was hot. It was June, and I was driving it pretty hard and didn't burn any oil, and still hasn't burned any oil. And I'm like, man,
that's amazing.
Good sealed engine.
Yeah, those engines are good.
So Chris has shown us the bike rack pictures. So tell us about Radavist, because our audience is mostly just trucks and straight up 4x4s.
So John, I'd found you on Instagram, but then I listened to You're Really Out There, and you talked about a kind of off-roading I'd never heard of before.
Which is what?
Long distance cycling off-road. Like to me, mountain biking is like we take the bikes to the park, we go ride, and we're done. Like,
and then you come back and stuff them in the truck and go home and sleep in your bed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what's so funny with, not to harp on it too much, but like I always like approach things with like a little bit of like pause. And when everyone's using this word overlanding, I'm like, I remember like seeing like Camel Trophy shit and being like that stuff's crazy. And I remember seeing, like in Toyota magazines or whatever growing up, you'd see like these guys that are gonna do all of Europe, like whatever. Like overlanding to me, and also the actual definition of overlanding is like self-sustained travel for months or years that crosses multiple international boundaries.
Right.
And so for me, it's like I grew up in the coastal North Carolina. Like there's nowhere to really go camping, but we grew up driving on the beach and getting stuck in sand and stuff and in 4x4s, and that would be considered overlanding today. And I'm like, no, that's just four-wheeler.
Yeah, if you sleep outside in a tent or like a rooftop, or something for a night, it's overlanding.
Car camping. Yeah.
Car camping. Yeah.
It's car camping. What it is. Yeah. It's car glamping.
Yeah. But I mean,
well, not glamping, but
yeah. Well, I should also say, like, my first real experiences camping self-sustained were off a bicycle. And so I'm like, I see these, and we go on road trips where I'm like, why do we have all this shit? Like, we have way too much shit. I'm like, if I could live off my bike and it only weighs 50 pounds, and if I could live off my bike for like a month like that, surely we can get out of the house. But like, it's nice to have fold-out chairs and like a table and like, full stove.
The convenience is nice.
Yeah. So that's what I was gonna say. Is my friend Ryan Wilson, who's been doing galleries for us for, I want to say like 5 years now, has been legit overlanding in South America and Asia on his bicycle. And it's really funny because everyone's like talking about overlanding, and then you bring in a bicycle into the conversation and they're like, wait, no, and I was like, well, people overland on motorcycles.
Right.
It's just different, So the Radavist, well, the word itself came from a combination of the words rad and atavism, which is kind of like the inherent nature of things to play. So it's like kind of why like a sea otter will slide down rocks, even if it has nothing to do with its like food gathering.
Right. It doesn't better it really in any way other than like, it's enjoyment. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and it's also a throwback to a kind of like older style of storytelling where you'd like kind of sit around a campfire and tell stories or whatever, like the autodidactic raconteurs of the world or whatever. So basically, we just started covering the weird outlying communities of cycling. I started it when I was in New York City, and I was like covering bike messengers and like alley cat races, which are these like illegal races that would happen in the city. Just kind of like anything related to bike culture. Yeah. I grew up mountain biking in North Carolina and in Vermont. So I moved to the big city and I was like, oh, what's just as kind of fun as like riding in the woods? Oh, I guess this like brakeless track bike is kind of like mountain biking, except the cars are trees and they move and they can kill you.
It's the same like little bit of danger. It could go really wrong, but keeps you on your toes. Yeah, New York has a very different bike culture. I mean, the bike lanes in New York alone are like people like flying, absolutely flying. Like it's like it's nothing.
Until there's like a car parked in the bike lane or like there's a bunch of trash in the bike lane. Yeah, it's
a
weird.
Delivery truck or something.
I went to architecture college, and when I graduated, I went over into Holland and visited a friend for a while. And so for me, like I came back from that experience and was like, man, I want to move somewhere you don't need a bike, or you don't need a car.
Don't need a car. Yeah.
I sold my car and moved to New York and didn't own a car again for like almost 10 years. And then I bought, I was in Austin at the time, and I was mountain biking a lot and doing like road rides, and there wasn't like gravel roads. Like the big like thing now in cycling is like everyone wants to ride gravel roads, and it's like Texas,
Why is
like
that?
you got to go like 50 miles out of town to get to any kind of dirt, and then it's usually 5 miles of dirt, and then you hit a private road. So
why is gravel road the kind of the hot thing?
I think it's, for me personally, riding on dirt means you're not going to be around a bunch of distracted drivers. It's really dangerous to ride on pavement. Yeah,
it is. It is.
Even like, so I live a mile from a trailhead, and even in that mile, I wish, and I've since found a trail. When we first moved here, I was riding the road to the trailhead, and I was like, this fucking sucks, because like you're in a neighborhood and people are still so distracted that they almost hit you.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So I think the big move to gravel was just like getting away from cars, to be honest. And it's, and I get it. I mean, I'm a driver, and I see cyclists on the road all the time, and I'm like, I'm giving them a lot of space, and I'm passing them real slowly, and I wave, and I'm like, I'm probably only doing that because I ride bikes too, because a lot of people just see cyclists as like nuisances on the road.
The same thing with motorcycles. Like most people look like frown upon motorcycles and motorcyclists, but if you have ridden, or if you have any friends who ride or have ridden, you treat them in a completely different way.
Or if you're just a human with empathy, it's like,
that's less frequent.
Like,
we don't have much of that.
I don't run over a grandma in a parking lot because she's walking too slow. Like, it's like, it's so funny. But I get it. I mean, because there are there are a lot of dickhead drivers. There's a lot of dickhead cyclists, and I just think there's like, it's strange. But I will say that I'm glad that I ride bikes for obvious reasons, and I'm glad that I off-road, and for obvious reasons too. I think there can be overlap. I think the world is like very binary these days, where it's like if you're a liberal, you can't drive a diesel. If you're a conservative, you can't ride a bike. And
right.
It sucks that like the earliest form of human transportation has been politicized into something that for some reason is like, like the Sierra Club hates mountain bikers, and like this fucking city planners hate commuters, and it's like all the problems in cities are partially because people don't feel safe riding a bike around. Like,
right, and that turns into them trying to move all of the population to parking outside the city. And trying to bike in or take public transport in. Yeah,
like it's crazy the amount of people that drive to the trailhead in town, and I'm like people that I know live within like 2 miles of the trailhead drive there, and it's not even uphill.
It's not even uphill.
It's like
you have no excuse.
You could be on a bike path where you're not even on the street, and then you hit like part of town, you have to ride through like a neighborhood or whatever. But it's, I don't know. It's interesting for sure. But I've also been out on my bike in like the middle of nowhere in the desert, and I've had, you have some people that dust you out and like treat you like you're garbage. And then you have some people that are like, hey, do you need water? Do you like, what the fuck are you doing out here? Like on your bike?
And you're like, I don't know.
They're like, fine. Sure. I'll take some water.
That's cool.
Yeah. So that's pretty much what I've been. So the economy tanked in 2008. Pretty much the entire architectural industry shut down, which is what I was working at the time in New York. And I decided that I didn't like architecture for various reasons. And I had this website thing, and a few companies bought ads, and I moved to Austin, Texas to lower my overhead, and because I had a lot of friends that were living there at the time. So I started mountain biking again. And then I had an epiphany where I was like, I'm in California for like, I don't know. At that time, I was probably in California for like 2 weeks out of every month.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, I'm just going to move there. And I moved to LA. But also Austin was getting like really busy and crowded, and it grew a lot in the time that I moved there till when I left. But for some reason, I was like, Austin sucks. It's too crowded. I'm going to move to Los Angeles.
Not crowded there at all. No,
Yeah, no. Nobody in LA.
Nobody goes there. Everyone's leaving now.
Yeah, well, they kind of have to.
Yeah. But I will give like LA credit. It's got amazing riding. It was just the cars. Like you couldn't. We lived up in Silver Lake above the reservoir on a really quiet street, and then all of a sudden it became a Waze cut through, and it was like cars going like 60 miles an hour down a road. There's parking on either side, and there's only enough room for one car to pass through. So there's like this game in Los Angeles where like you're driving, and then all of a sudden you hit another car, and you guys are facing each other, and no one can go around. So like something has to back up.
Red Rover. Let's have a head-on collision.
Yeah, exactly. And like people are blowing stop signs, and the weird thing for me was like the hypocrisy of a lot of it, because all these fuckers had like signs in their yard like slow down Silver Lake, but if like, and I would see people's cars who had like a slow down Silver Lake sign in their front yard speeding down my road.
Oh my God.
That I lived on, where I almost got hit multiple times walking my dog at night. And there's a bunch of other reasons for me to want to move. I'm just not a big city person, and it was, you know, it is what it is. So I wanted to live somewhere above 5,000 feet, and hope, like, I wanted to live in the Southwest. I don't, you know, nothing against Colorado, but I just couldn't see myself living in Colorado. I love Tucson, but it's too hot for the summer. And I was just like, you know what? Santa Fe's got a lot going on. I love northern New Mexico. I mean, someone way back when drew an imaginary line between New Mexico and Colorado. And so it's like all the reasons why people like Colorado, kind of the same reason why I love Santa Fe.
It's just a lot. It doesn't, you know.
Yeah, and then we're 5 hours from, you know, where that photo's taken. We're 5 hours from, you know, Moab. We're 5 hours from a lot of really awesome stuff. And once the interstate travel restrictions lift for New Mexico, I'll be on the road again, hopefully. But right now it's like, you know, we still have stay-at-home orders. We still have, like, you know, you have to wear a mask in public no matter what. Even if you're riding your bike, you have to have a mask on.
Right.
Really?
If you step outside, it goes on, right?
Yeah. You can't, I mean, if you're riding in the woods, like, you don't have to wear a mask, but like if you're riding through town, and I still have like a buff or like a handkerchief where if I'm riding and I see a hiker, I'll pull it up and you know, give them
the courteous thing to do.
But New Mexico's taking it really seriously. It's just all the states around us aren't. So we're surrounded by a bunch of, like, you know, people that are like COVID deniers running their government in Arizona.
Arizona's right next door.
And honestly, I would take Arizona any day over fucking Texans. I can't, like, and my girlfriend's a Texan, and we both are like, that is the biggest fucking bummer about New Mexico is, and it's not like, I know I'm stereotyping, but I would say there's probably a larger majority of Texans with like big ass trucks with like tiny dick energy, acting like they own the road and acting like they own the place than there are like,
compensation energy.
Austin's only so big, you know, it's like,
exactly. It doesn't redeem the rest of the state.
Yeah.
That's
But,
funny.
and sorry for any Texas listeners. My dad's actually from Temple, so I'm probably more Texan than anything else at this point.
It's constructive criticism.
Yeah. Let's be real. Like, yeah. But yeah, so it's been a good transition. It's, you know, I miss really good Japanese food. There's no good Japanese food in town. First thing,
incentive to get back to the coast when you can.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. But
So,
I'm sure I'll be back to spending multiple weeks in California out of the year because that's where the entire bike industry is. But yeah, so that's basically, so another reason why I have the Troopy is because I was living out of the 80 series with the GFC for like 7 months out of the year, traveling around to bike races, shooting bikes. I really love like people that make things in shops in the US still. So, you know, there's companies like White Industries that are making hubs in Petaluma. Chris King makes headsets and stuff. in Portland, and there's all these like cool little shops that are building like bike frames, like, you know, full suspension steel mountain bikes in Quincy, California, and all this like cool shit happening in garages. And so there was no website that was really documenting all this stuff when I started. So like, you know, we visit frame builders and like bag makers, and and that's pretty much like my full-time job, is traveling around and then documenting races that happen, but like not like spandex like roadie races. These are like pretty rugged, like backcountry, you know, like racing through the high Sierra on like a gravel bike.
Crazy.
Yeah, and most people are like mushrooms or LSD or something during the race.
They're chasing me, man. They got to keep going.
Yeah. But it's been an awesome job, and I get to like pay a bunch of really talented friends of mine to document. Yeah, that's the Bisbee Bicycle Brothel down in Bisbee, Arizona. I get to pay a bunch of really talented people to do what they love, which is always great. I mean, everyone likes supporting their friends, and then yeah, and it's a job. It's like a 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. job.
Oh wow!
So,
and I mean, it seems like there's a pretty big, I don't know if resurgence is the right word, but the bike industry is kind of gathering more and more steam.
Yeah. It's impossible to get a fucking anything right now. Like brake pads. Like imagine going to Napa or somewhere trying to buy brake pads for your car, and they're like, we're out. Oh, well, can you order them? No, I mean like
the entire country's out.
The entire country's out.
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah, like inner tubes. Like all the bike shops here didn't have 26-inch inner tube, because everyone's taking these like
everybody needs them. Yeah.
Mountain bikes and like trying to turn them into commuters or trying to get back on the trails. But yeah, well, I mean, I would love if it stayed popular. But I mean, already, like, you know, Netflix today announced that they have a 5% lower membership. And I'm like, yeah, because everyone's acting like COVID isn't a thing anymore. Everyone's traveling on the road. No one's stuck at home anymore. And the numbers are higher now than they were in March.
Right.
So it's been really hard to like not, like all my friends were in Moab a few weeks ago, and I was like, yeah, I want to go to Moab. But then, yeah.
That was what my dad and I were supposed to go to Iceland, and we went to southern Utah instead.
Oh,
and
cool.
Basically, we didn't do much until we were like outside. Like,
you guys got pretty good and far away from everybody.
We got pretty good and far away from everybody, but then we also spent a lot of time just two dudes in a hotel room. Like,
yeah,
because
no, it's weird.
Like, you didn't want to go out and be exposed to anything, so like. At least we knew like the window unit was what was giving us our AC. It wasn't coming from somewhere else in the building. Like it was not ideal, but it was good. It was good.
Still got to live a little bit. Tough line to straddle, but
dude.
Yeah, and I get it. Like I no judgment here for people that are traveling. I just, as like someone that's like a public figure, I have to obey the law, and I want to be a good citizen in my new state, and I want to set a good example for people.
Right. Lead by example.
Yeah. And you know, we are truly privileged and blessed to have like, you know, have all of this crazy shit in our backyard, to where I've had people write me emails and be like, I see that you're verbally like opposing traveling during COVID, but you're driving all over the American West in your new cruiser. And I was like, no, that's New Mexico. And
they're like, I left my state.
Yeah. It's the same county, man.
I know Breaking Bad made New Mexico look like it's just all dusty arroyos and like rusted out walls. So like, no, we're at 7,000 feet. Like we've got more than shit to do here. So
I've never seen that series.
You've never seen Breaking Bad?
When Breaking Bad came out, I was a middle school science teacher, and it hit a little too close to home for him being a high school chemistry teacher and upset with his life.
You'd have to go a little off the rails there.
Yeah, no. Like I watched the first episode, and at the time I was like, "Ooh, this is too real for me. I'm gonna have to." I probably could watch it now and be completely fine, because it's been, God, eight years since I've been in a classroom. So 7 years,
like 10 years since it debuted. 9 years. It's worth watching.
I don't know. I'll get around to it.
Worth watching.
I've tried powering through it, but it's not as like we just watched like the entire Shit Creek like all
Oh
whatever.
my god.
Yeah.
We're like halfway through season. No, we just started season 6.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's his sister.
So yeah, we've watched it the entire twice. Like,
Oh shit.
yeah, because it's
Okay.
so good.
It is. It's so good.
I've never cried as hard. Like, I've never cried watching a TV show. Like, I mean, I may have cried like some fucking puppy rescue thing or whatever, but I cried. The last like 2 episodes of that
really?
show.
Oh fuck.
And then the documentary afterwards, I cried even harder.
I cried laughing watching the bloopers. There are some amazing bloopers.
Yeah.
Like they just look like they had so much fun doing it.
Yeah. It kind of, it feels like it was like the only beacon of hope for us every night. It was like a big bowl of popcorn and we'd sit down and watch Schitt's Creek.
I absolutely enjoy the fact that it's Eugene Levy and his son.
Yeah.
Playing
and his
father and son.
Daughter too.
Yeah. And his daughter, Carla. Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to say anymore because I still have like most of a season to go. And
So is it at the point now when anything gross happens, does your girlfriend just say, "You, David"? Like, just
we've been walking around just going, "Ew," for everything.
I pop Carrie on the nose and go, boop, sometimes. I don't know. Like the coolest thing too is I'm blanking on Eugene Levy's wife's name in real life. I forget her name. I don't know, but she created the accent of Moira's character.
Deborah Devine.
Deborah, right?
Oh, okay. She there was an interview with her, and she was like talking about how she wanted the character to sound, and she just made up an accent. Because I was like, what the is this accent?
It's an extremely unique accent. Like, it's not. Yeah. It's not like the old timey mid Atlantic that we all have heard like in movies forever. Like, it's very unique.
It's really funny.
Permanently pinpointed to that. There'll never be an accent like that again.
Yeah, but that show's great. And then we just finished watching Lovecraft Country, which is another.
Heard good things.
Like, I was reading like H.P. Lovecraft when I was like 15. Like, I read like At the Mountains of Madness and was just like, what the fuck is this? Oh my god! Shoggoths, Cthulhu, what? Old ones, what? And then you watch all these sci-fi movies and you're like, oh, they're just stealing Lovecraft's idea. Oh, modern horror, like, and it just. I didn't know Lovecraft Country was actually a book. So I'm gonna go back and I have to read that book now. But yeah, that was really good. I don't really know. I mean, it's weird. It's been hard. Like, I hate watching. I mean, I'll watch TV, but I would much rather be like out doing stuff. But this year has like definitely pushed that to the limit.
More TV watching and more reading this year than any year in recent memory.
Yeah. I pushed myself to really read more, like just like more like memoirs by like BIPOC and indigenous authors, because I just felt like if we're all stuck indoors, like I should be reading that stuff. And I really love like reading Craig Childs, and I read Craig Childs stuff a lot, but I was like, time to put Craig on the shelf for a little bit and deep dive into some of this other stuff. So that's been really it's been really eye-opening, and also like just been we host a lot of like BIPOC and LGBTQ stories on the Radavist, and so this one woman in Austin wrote about like white privilege and the coronavirus and bike racing, and
really,
we've had like this Navajo mountain biker wrote about land, and we've had another woman from the Midwest write about what it means to be indigenous and go to bike races, and so kind of like, and we've been doing this for the past like 5 years on the site, trying to like give a platform. So it's not like the woke moment that everyone had. Like, it felt really good to see other big companies like kind of rising to the occasion, but it's also kind of cynical to be like, let's see how long this lasts.
Right? You're like, hi, we're here. We've been doing this the whole time. Yeah,
and it's not anything. If anything, it's like I ever want to take credit for that kind of shit because all I'm doing is hosting it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really easy to just pay people for their time. And it blows my mind that there's still brands, like big brands, not paying these like indigenous athletes and these like BIPOC athletes and influencers. And I'm like, what? You didn't get paid for that story? Nothing? You didn't get product? You didn't get nothing? You consulted with a brand for 4 hours on the phone and they didn't pay you a cent? You're a consultant. You are worth tens of thousands of dollars of potential PR fuck ups from these companies. Like, yeah, it's crazy. So it's like, it's really, I mean, it feels awesome to like reach out to someone and say, hey, I really love what you do. Can we host some of your work? And like, I'll pay you. Like, first sentence, like because that honestly, we're in a capitalist society and you have to fucking pay people. Like,
yeah. People know their worth. People should know their worth.
Their, exposure or whatever. Like, no, like exposure doesn't pay the bills. Like, I know that struggle. I know companies that are like, oh, we'll use your photo in our inner bike booth and it'll get you great exposure. And I'm like, yeah, that's not going to pay my
rent. Right. Right.
Exactly. We're not dealing in exposure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a fancy way of saying, let us use your stuff for free.
Yeah, totally. I'm like, you want to use my photos to sell your product? But that's the crazy thing about the off-road community is I've definitely had way more luck selling photos and actually getting paid on time than I have in the cycling industry. And it's, of course, like, as capitalism will prove, any like industry that is essentially like rooted in killing the earth is going to have more money than any industry that's like rooted in save the world. But it's for me, I like drive a 30-year-old truck that's like, it gets great fuel economy and whatever. And adaptive reuse, whatever you want to say about like buying new stuff versus reusing old stuff.
Right.
But yeah,
it's proven time and time again, less damaging to buy something old and keep it alive.
Yeah. It's a hard discussion to have at like within cycling to drive a diesel and like you show up at a bike race and this like big thing and people are like, whoa. Some people are into it and then some people are like, you're killing the earth. And it's like, well, you flew here.
Right.
You're killing it faster.
Frankly, the same thing. Like I daily drive a Miata and half the people that look at it go, that thing's probably really fast, but it doesn't do too good on gas. How often do you have to fill up? And like, it gets 30 miles per gallon. Chill.
Yeah, it's a Miata. Yeah. It's like,
it's 8 years old and gets 30 miles per gallon. It's not doing any worse than your fucking CRV or RAV4.
Yeah. It's really funny too, because like if someone just came out with like a replica of the 80s pickup with an EV engine and like no power windows and like no bullshit. I mean, obviously like the shitty thing about America is you need to have like airbags and everything.
Right.
Airbags, Bluetooth.
Yeah.
Rear view camera.
Rear view camera.
That's
legally mandated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is crazy. I didn't realize that. But we're at this like weird spot where we're driving these like crazy, and they're just getting bigger. Like we're driving these like big trucks with like all of this crazy electronics in it. I mean, like a CPU could like have a blip and the whole fucking truck will shut down. And then they're relying on like gas guzzling engines where I'm like, man, like I've never owned a modern vehicle. I mean, I'm used to like no airbags and I'm used to like shipping a rattly shit box. Like you drive down a road, even with 20 PSI in your tires and like everything is rattling loose. But I think it's like the difference between like, I don't drive the truck to drive a truck. That's the vehicle that I use to get out and do stuff like mountain bike or rock hound or.
It's your means to the end.
Yeah. So I think that's like the difference of like people that will buy a $45,000 Forerunner and shove $40,000 worth of gear into it and then just go sit at a campfire all night. And, it's like, and there's no judgment again, but different priorities.
So absolutely.
Just Just a little inside baseball. My wife is smothering her phone right now because whatever game she was playing started a political ad, and it was so loud.
No.
And she couldn't get it off. She literally shoved it. Her phone was dying under a pillow right now. She kept glancing over. I was trying.
You can't escape it.
You had very valid points. They weren't. I wasn't laughing at the comedy of your point.
No, I don't care. I could talk. These days, like I don't see many people, so I could just like talk for hours.
Yeah, we'll take it.
Yeah. On that note, though, I do have to call it soon because I am so tired. East Coast time.
Ross had a funny story because you were talking about technology, John, and being weird. What was your Volvo story the other day?
Which one?
The one we were talking about last night. They turned something on and something that was completely unrelated.
Yeah. I'm covering my mouth so I can't get in trouble for anything.
Here, I'll say it. There allegedly may have been a particular brand of vehicle that when you turn the radio on, the rear wiper would actuate.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. New car.
Brand new car.
Allegedly.
I watch all these like four-wheel drive 24/7, like Australia, like, you know, videos or like the guys are out speeding up trucks or whatever. And then you end up like the next video is like some American guy talking about some car, and some YouTube channel where like a father-son bought like the new Land Rover Defender, and it was like the CPU went out and like the check engine light was on it, and like 200 miles on it.
Oh, no.
And they're like, oh, but we've had an LR3 and it's been nothing but great. And I was like, yeah, because like modern vehicles.
There's 10 less computers in that car.
You think it's only 10? I bet it's more than 10.
And they worked out all of the shit in the first owner.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, like, all these like people are opposed to having EV vehicles. I'm like, I would drop a crate electronic engine in that Troopy in a second if like once the batteries are better and once like America's not starting revolutions in Bolivia over lithium. But any kind of power source is gonna have a fucking problem. Like everyone in Southern California buying Teslas, like guess where all your power comes from? Coal burning Page, Arizona. Like so there's gonna be an effect with all this stuff, but like the funny thing is like the opposition to the EV stuff, and they're like, I don't want any computer electronics in my car. I'm like, dude, you drive a brand new Tundra. Guess how many computers are in that thing?
You already have them.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're already there.
They also posted that through their smartphone.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is probably worse.
A lot of people like getting mad about, I mean, whatever, just insert any kind of like political thing that you could get mad about. And you're like, guess where the technology for that cell phone in your hand came from? The military. All those satellites, not for cell phones. Like,
guess where GPS the whole time. I didn't have a cell signal, but I still had GPS. I wonder why that was.
Yeah, I wonder why that is. I wonder where all that rare earth minerals came from. Some child in Africa mined them for you, so you could do Instagram. Like
people don't see that though; they just see.
Only see what's in front
of us.
I have
this.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's a complicated system that we're in. But yeah, it's also not grounds to like write people off or like cancel them because like they do something that you don't do or whatever. Anyway.
Right.
Binary world. So.
Yeah.
John, you want to plug your stuff real fast?
Me?
Yeah.
Plug what stuff?
The Radavist?
No, your stuff. You got to be careful with how that comes out.
I don't have any stuff. No. You want me to do like a closing thing about it or whatever?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like we're kind of like we like doing the same shit that people that go car camping doing. We just like doing it on our bicycles, and I also like car camping. So yeah, if you're curious about how fun cycling can be, or if you've always thought that cycling are just a bunch of like skinny dudes in like spandex climbing up mountains in a pack, that's not what all cycling's about. So yeah, the Radavists, we're just a group of individuals that share the love of cycling in the outdoors is like our tagline. So yeah, we just try to.
I'm very curious to get back into it.
Yeah, totally. It's fun. It takes, the difference is like, I've actually seen a lot of like off-roaders get back into bikes and they're like, man, this is fucking hard. But then they lose 30 pounds.
Aging Jeff Plucker.
Yeah. I was to say the owner of Hooniverse he's probably been doing it for 2 years now. He's gotten back into mountain bikes and he's dropped a lot of weight doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like this guy, Jim Bob, that lives in Santa Barbara, he grew up BMXing and doing dirt jumps and shit. And then he just recently got back into mountain biking, and he'd always like send me like questions about stuff, or I'd like watch his stories, and he's like, he posts his like Strava times, which Strava's kind of like a app for cycling, just to map your rides and stuff like that, and it shows you how fast like you're going up stuff or going down stuff. Be like, oh, I beat my time climbing by 5 minutes, and then now he's like super fit and doing like really hard Southern California climbs that I would always dread doing when I would go to Santa Barbara. And now his like mountain bike is on the back of his truck. And so I think another account, that 4x4 touring guy, who he had that big excursion.
It's Chris Cordes.
Chris is like into bikes too, and it's like, yeah, I mean, I've had great conversations with people that like to off-road and that get into mountain biking because they're like, oh, the Forest Service shut down this road because a bunch of trees or a big washout, and I used to love that road, and I just wanted to get out and see it again, and I didn't want to walk 25 miles, so I got a bike to go ride, and then they find that there's single track down the road, and you're like, oh, yeah, so
it's way easier.
Yeah, it's way easier
and more fun.
Yeah, I mean, Moab, like four-wheeling in Moab is fun, but like there's nothing better than doing the full enchilada. Like, I'm sorry, like you could wheel like Poison Spider, Cliffhanger, all that shit, like shuttling and like bombing down the full enchilada is, you start in Aspen and you finish at the Colorado River. Like it's, you're up in like beautiful high country in Utah, and then suddenly you're in like the desert. It's really cool. It's really special. Yeah.
I love
it.
But
anyway, I know it's late for you guys, and
it's late for Ross.
For me, and for me alone.
The glory of the East Coast time zone.
Yeah.
Sweet. So
yeah,
check out John at John Prawley on Instagram, at the Radavist on Instagram, Twitter too.
Yeah, kind of. I just mostly post photos on Twitter, but we're also on the web at www.theradavist.com.
Yep. And I just opened that article you were talking about, bike racing, white privilege, and the coronavirus, and intend on reading it tonight, or at this point tomorrow morning.
Yeah. There's like, I mean, the sad thing about like being stuck at home is like I've had to do a lot more product stuff than I usually do. So there's a lot of bike portraits this time of year, like where it's just like bike galleries. I obviously, like we all are consumers and capitalists and everything, but like if I could just post like bike rides and like touring photo sets and stuff like that, like that's all I would want to do. But
that's the way we'd love to do off-road too. Like we don't ever want to do a product review. We'd rather just go and take a trip. Like it's,
Yep.
But somebody's got to follow the trip.
Yeah, I know. And it's that's the, luckily, like we haven't gotten into any of like the sponsored content stuff where we just sell banner ads and there's like no strings attached. Like it's literally just like a URL with a JPEG. So it's not like they're like it's not like companies are like, we want you to use our wheels on this new mountain bike trip.
Right.
It's like, oh, the wheels are on the bike. Like, that's great. Right. And they're like, yeah, I'm not going to talk about the wheels while I'm like doing the trip. Like we're lucky, and knock on wood, we haven't had to go down that road, but funding has been great and our web store like kills it. So
nice.
We pay all my friends to do really awesome stuff, and it's a great feeling.
Real fast. Awesome. What animal is the logo? What is
Oh yeah. That's got a funny story.
That's okay.
So my friends who own a design company called Land designed all of our branding. Their stuff looks really familiar because it's been knocked off and copied so much over the past 10 years by every like hipster with Illustrator. No offense to the word hipster, I've been called hipster a lot too, but Land kind of created this like really brilliant visual design style, and then it just became popular. So they did all the branding for Polar back when Polar started. They did the Ace Hotel. Slow and Low, like Madre Mezcal. They've just done a lot of stuff over the years. They launched like a weed company called Old Pal. Oh. And so I knew Caleb and Ryan when I lived in Austin. And I was like, yeah, I want to do this like site. I like explained the concept to them. And I was like, then there's this like really kind of fucked up animal that I found in this like this grim fairy tale book. And I scanned the photo and it was like some big ass monster beast looking thing, like eating a milk maiden from like a German like grim fairy tale book. And I was like, yeah, I like this animal, but I don't want it killing the milk maiden, and I don't want it to look scary. So we came up with this idea of this jackal that has a long tail that it trips on when it walks, and so it's like always like falling and like fucking up its back. So yeah, there it is. So it's technically a jackal, but everyone thinks it. Yeah, it's weird, but yeah, that's it basically. And the idea too was like it's kind of like an Ouroboros or like an Ouroboros, where it's like the jackal. It's like almost eating its tail. So there's I don't know. We just kind of got stoned and kicked some ideas around.
As you do.
That's good. Yeah.
Well, it's stuck. It's funny.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely
our Indian
definitely recognizable.
Yeah.
See, because it even has it eating it around, like even there, like it has it eating. Love it.
Yeah. They've done such a good job.
It's got a Far East flair to it too. I like it a lot.
Yeah, their style is like it kind of like adapts. I mean, people will say it's like stealing, and I get that, but it's like inspired by like you can't really nail it down. You're like, what is that exactly? Like all of their branding and logo, like some of it looks like Egyptian, some of it looks, you know, what you would see like painted on a panel somewhere in Utah. Like they just, and the guys are like beautiful, like spiritual people without being like religious. They just have like a glowing energy and they've been pushing like the right message. So it's like, I want to support people and I want to like work with people that I feel like I align with in either like a physical, metaphysical, or like some kind of like social perspective. So yeah.
Dude, that's fantastic.
That's a sign in the background that you can't really see because it's too dark, but it says Stoned Drifter or Stoned Rifter, depending. And that's one of like the first land pieces that I bought when I was in Austin.
That's right.
Dude, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Interpret well.
I know you're tired, Ross. I'll let you get to sleep.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us, John.
Yeah.